2011, her concern shifted toward herself as she was arrested for aggravated manslaughter on a child with culpable negligence. In an interview in August of 2011, she said that this was a tragedy she would have never pictured her family going through. Cristian's charges were upgraded to juvenile manslaughter following his little brother's death, but he was ultimately indicted by a grand jury on the charge of first-degree murder as an adult. Facing life in prison without the chance of parole, 12-year-old Cristian Fernandez became the youngest ever charged as such in Duval County, Florida. From his arrest on March 15th until his indictment at the end of June, the Kernan Middle School sixth grader spent 23 hours a day in isolation at the county jail. Throughout his incarceration there, his mother Biannela was being held at the same jail, but neither of them knew this at the time and wouldn't have been allowed to see each other regardless. Cristian denied premeditation or intent to kill. Proven intent to kill was required even for a second-degree murder conviction. State's Attorney Angela Corey supported the adult first-degree charge, saying later that she always expected a combination of incarceration and therapy to be the final outcome. For the remainder of 2011 through part of 2012, Public Defender Matt Shirk would unsuccessfully attempt to secure a plea agreement on a lesser charge, seen as the most obvious way for Cristian to avoid the mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole should he be convicted. On March 28, 2012, at a pretrial hearing, Biannela pled guilty to aggravated manslaughter on a child with culpable negligence, then began her wait to testify at Cristian's trial and await her own sentencing. She was facing 36 years behind bars if found guilty. By August 2012, Matt Shirk no longer represented Cristian at the request of his family, replaced by powerhouse defense attorney Hank Cox. That same month, the judge suppressed all videotaped interviews that Cristian had given the night he was arrested. It was evident from the tapes that he did not fully comprehend the implication of waiving his Miranda rights or what would happen if he did. The 12-year-old's trial as an adult for first-degree murder was scheduled to begin 7 months later, on March 4th, 2013. Hank Cox was successful in securing a plea deal with the prosecution, and a month before trial was set to begin, a now 13-year-old Cristian pled guilty to manslaughter as a juvenile on February 8, 2013. The boy, whom 2 forensic psychologists deemed emotionally underdeveloped, would be incarcerated in a juvenile facility until the age of 19. Here, he could receive treatment necessary to consider him rehabilitated. The majority of parties involved, from the defense to the prosecution to the judge, felt that, taking into account his turbulent upbringing of repeated abuse, neglect, and trauma, he was amenable to treatment. Once released at 19, 8 years of probation would be required. Following is an excerpt from an email statement from Cristian's defense team after his plea. We have accomplished our mission to salvage Cristian Fernandez's ability to have a normal adult life. It was an injustice to charge him with first-degree murder, and we are pleased that he will be treated as a juvenile, as he should have been from the outset. Now he can move on. 14 years old by then, Cristian and Biannela wrote long letters to each other. He told her she was the best mom in the galaxy and said, "Dear Mommy, I received your letter today. I loved it. I remember when we were just a family, but it's my fault and I'm very sorry. I'm sorry for you being in jail. I'll pay you back one day, promise." His plea accelerated his mother's sentencing, and on what would have been David Galarraga's 5th birthday, August 14, 2013, Biannela Susana, now 27, was sentenced to 10 years probation, with almost 2.5 years already served in jail being credited towards her probation time. She had faced a maximum 36-year sentence. She had no contact with her 2 younger children, and she was only allowed to have contact with Cristian if she had permission from his lawyers or guardian. Once the hearing was over, she processed out of county jail to head to the transitional facility Hubbard House for a 90-day program. After 2 years enrolled at a program with Community Connections, 36 months of employment at Dolores Bar Weaver Policy Center would also be required. From their website at www.seethegirl.org, they describe themselves as a not-for-profit organization that is partially funded from a multi-year grant from the Dolores Bar Weaver Fund. They conduct research, run model programs, provide training, and advocate on behalf of girls who've been raped and abused. The organization was founded by the powerhouse philanthropist Dolores Bar Weaver, wife of former Jacksonville Jaguars owner Wayne Weaver, and a visionary advocate for the unique needs and issues facing women and girls. Their periodic newsletters showed that in November of 2013, Biannela accepted the position of Program Development Assistant at the Policy Center. The month before, in a pre-sentencing hearing, testimony from multiple psychologists and social workers had expressed that a lifetime of abandonment, domestic violence, and PTSD stemming from a damaging childhood of neglect could not be ignored. Many Jacksonville area organizations had stepped forward to offer treatment options to the judge in lieu of jail time prior to Biannela's sentencing. Biannela called David's death the most painful experience of her life, saying, "He will always live in my heart." During a phone interview conducted while she was in jail, she paused when she was asked if she blamed Cristian for the death of his youngest brother. She said that it was much more complicated than just blaming Cristian. Many things played a part for that event to happen. She hoped for a life for him outside incarceration. He had dreams of being an air traffic controller, a history professor, or a football player. Dreams she hopes he can fulfill someday. Cristian went to Cypress Creek Juvenile Offender Correctional Center in Lecanto, Florida, in February of 2013 at age 14 to serve out the remaining 6 years of his juvenile sentence. His defense attorney, Hank Cox, and his wife, Mary, became extremely close with Cristian. Since the beginning of his incarceration, Mary drove 260 miles each Saturday to spend the afternoon playing games, talking about books, laughing, and showing him what love is. It took time, she said in a 2016 Florida Times-Union interview, for her to earn his respect and love, and now he works to earn her approval. He knows I love him, and he knows I care, and there aren't a lot of people in this life that he can say that about. As his 19th birthday on January 14th, 2018 approached, a status hearing was held on January 10th, where his attorneys asked for and received a temporary suspension of some of the terms of Cristian's probation, though they didn't specify which terms, only saying he could not fulfill some of them at this time. They said that citing some recent developments, fulfilling all terms would be unrealistic and problematic. Original terms upon release were limited to no contact with minors, no contact with his siblings unless they request it, along with the requirement for employment when capable. If adhered to for 5 years, the remaining time will be forgiven. A status hearing is set for February 2018 to reassess the terms of probation. On January 15th, 2018, one day after his 19th birthday, Cristian Fernandez was released from juvenile custody. Rest peacefully, little David. Podcast buddies of the week are American Slacker Podcast and Nature vs. Narcissism Podcast. Please make sure to subscribe, listen, rate, and review.
What up, Slackers? I'm Matt.
And I'm Jesse. We're the host of American Slacker, a weekly show that discusses the weirdest in world events.
We cover UFC, the latest in technology, Xbox games, entertainment, and music reviews.
We have conversations with musicians, actors, filmmakers, and other interesting guests.
Twist one up or crack one open with us every Monday to start your work week off right. That's it.
There you go.
Hey guys, I'm Heather.
And I'm Rochelle.
And we're from Nature vs. Narcissism,
a true crime podcast mixed with some dark humor.
Sometimes we have alcohol.
Sometimes we have guests.
Since I've always been fascinated by true crime, I wanted to delve deeper into the criminal mind and discuss why these criminals commit these vile acts.
Was it nature? Was it nurture? Or was it just plain old narcissism?
Join us every week for a brand new episode.
You can find us on Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Google Play, TuneIn, and Podbean.
Don't call the cops!
Bye!
Thanks for listening. See you next week for another look at the twisted things kids can do on Murderous Minors, Killer Kids.